Kalmegam has deconstructs this Varnashrama Dharma by using a very important tool in the grammar rhetorics. What do you call that in Tamil? Kadai Modi Matru. Kadai Modi Matru means taking the last word of the poem and starting to read from that. So now I read the actual poem. மார்தின்பான் பார்ப்பான் மறையோதுவான் புயவன் தூடி மிகு மனத்து செய்வான் கொல்லனே தேடி இரும்படிப்பான் செக்கான் எண்ணெய் விற்பான் வந்தான் பருப்புடவை தப்பும் பறை. Which is the last word in the poem? பறை. You take that word and start reading from there. பறை மார்தின்பான் பார்ப்பான் மறையோதுவான் புயவன் கூடி மிகு மனத்து செய்வான் கொல்லனே இரும்படிப்பான் செக்கான் எண்ணெய் விற்பான் வந்தான் பருப்புடவை தப்பும். The tone of the poet or the protagonist of the poem, she seems to be a supporter of the hierarchy in tasks. And the beginning of the poem, she beckons Marx and Lenin. And she is of the opinion, it seems, that such a revolution brought by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar in the north and Thandai Periyar Reviyar in the south, to annihilate the system called Varnashrama. And the writer who has been instrumental in bringing out her work, comrade Amaranda, and eminent people like Kalpakam Natarajan, Mr. Raju, who I once knew while he was a copywriter in Shasi Advertising. He was our senior, super senior in our college, and just getting the invitation, just after coming across the invitation, Mr. Velligiri has come for Metupalayam. He is also a writer. He has written a beautiful book, a wonderful book, comparing the poet of Coimbatore, Velligatan, with Pattukotai Kalyanasundar. Mr. Velligiri has come. So, good morning to everyone. And the one thing I just wanted to say before I begin my speech, and Mrs. Hemavaty, that while I was sitting beside her, her language is very young. And I am told that she is 80, but her language is very young. And she seems to have known for her interesting comments. And the one thing was, I felt very happy. When I sat beside her, she asked me, are you Mr. Meenakshi Sundaram? Yes, I am. I thought that Meenakshi Sundaram would be an old man. So, thanks for that. And when Comrade Amaranda contacted me to speak on the book written by this 80-year-old author, and it is a pleasant surprise to know that he is also a painter who has done all the illustrations for the little book, and she is also a sculptor. I'm just reminded of Khalil Gibran. And the Lebanese poet, he was not only a poet, he was a sculptor and a painter. And that I have been a good reader of Indian English poetry. And I started my writing as a poet in English and Tamil. But after the completion of academic studies in English literature, that there cannot be any vocation, there cannot be any profession for being a poet in the world. So, writing poetry is a passion, and the poetry cannot make a profession. So, I had to be a journalist. I had to be a journalist, or I had to be an English language teacher, I had to be a translator. Still, my passion has always been for reading and writing. And even today, I am working on a translation of the life and vision of the Indian modernist poet Nizam Ezekiel for Sahitya Academy. And I have been a reader of, I have been a lover and a reader of Indian English poems. So, Comrade Anuruddha must have felt that I would be an apt person to address on the book. And even I am also an author of some books in English and Tamil, and two of them are books of poems. In that way, she must have thought that this writer would be an apt person to address or to estimate the poems of Mrs. Hemavaty. And we were very much pleased to listen to the reading of Comrade Anuruddha while she was reading the estimation given by the senior Marxist writer S.P. Rajadura. And his reading is wide. And the thing, it is very nice to hear that he spoke about, he has written about Enhedwana, Sappho, and many other pioneering women authors. So we really miss him here. Anyway, before coming to the estimation of the poems, book of the poems, I should like to outline the history of Indian English poetry, or the history of Indian English writing. And so when you trace the history of English writing in India, and it was the thing, we can discover the three sons of one in Andhra Pradesh, the then Andhra Pradesh, Mr. Kavalli Venkataramaswamy. He rendered the first writing in English. The first writing in English by an Indian was Visva Guna Darshana. It was a 17th century Sanskrit poem. It was not an original work. I mean, it was not a real work. It was a translation, and he did the translation. And the thing, it is probably the earliest piece of literature written in 1825. In 1825, it was a book of verse. It was a book of Sanskrit verse, first written by an Indian in English. It was a translation. But what is interesting here is, I came across in one of the articles, I have a very big library at home with a collection of some 12,000 books, personal library. So in one of the books I read it. So the interesting thing, that the author traces, the author of that book, History of Indian English Literature, when he traces the origin of Indian English writing, and he underlines this book, Vishwa Guna Darshana, the Sanskrit poem, translated into English. So it was published in Calcutta, but with the help of donations. So publishing a book, it was really a challenge. It seems to be a challenge those days. It was published with the help of donations. And what is interesting here is, for that book, that the book which was translated by Kavalli Venkataramaswamy, the list of donors includes two interesting names. One was Raja Ram Mohan Rai, and another was Dwaraganath Tagore, the father of Rabindranath Tagore. It is a rare information which I just wanted to share with you at a time when a book of English poems written by an author of this land is being released. And the next element, the next phase which I wanted to share with you is the sons of Kavalli Venkata, the three sons, as I was telling in the beginning, of Eluru, the West Godavari district, then Andhra Pradesh. And he was the first Indian author to write in English. And he wrote a journal, he kept a journal in English. And the thing, we know very well about Mackenzie's collections. He was the first Surveyor General of India. So he came from Europe, and he worked he was appointed as the first Surveyor General, and he surveyed all the areas, and he was a passionate collector of antiquities, and he deciphered epigraphs and many other things. And Mackenzie's collection is a very famous journal in archaeology, in epigraphy. And his son, that Kavali Venkata Subbaya's son, Boraya. And he was the first person to write the journal. He kept a journal and he traveled with Mackenzie. Wherever Mackenzie went, he traveled with him. And he jotted down the contents and he contributed the articles in English to the magazine of the journal of the Royal Asiatic Society. The Royal Asiatic Society. And another important information which I wanted to share with you is Mackenzie, that Boraya was very close to Mackenzie, and it is. I really wonder, that how many people have known Boraya as they have known Mackenzie. So Boraya was an interpreter. He was whereas Mackenzie was a European, and Boraya was an interpreter, and he should have been strong both in his mother tongue, both in the South Indian languages and in English. So the thing, that Mackenzie, that he was really grateful. A European was really grateful to Boraya. When Boraya died after his death, that Mackenzie had a monument to his memory raised on the Madras seashore. And the mention of that monument had been there till 1847. But we don't know what happened to that memorial in Madras. I don't know. Elderly people can trace this. And since Mackenzie was a collector of antiquities and he was an Orientalist and Indologist, and he contributed much to the history of South India, and particularly Tamil Nadu. And following Boraya's death, his brother Lakshmaya, and he too had his contribution, a pioneering contribution in Indian English. That is, recently, that a few months back, another professor of mine, who taught me English in Annam University while I was pursuing my PG, he translated Sundaramurti Devarams into English. And he has titled the book, this is the English Devaram. He uses English as a verb, English Devaram. And he has also translated Peri Purana into English. And I thought, that whenever we come across the piece of literature Peri Purana, we cannot forget Sivakavimani C.K. Subramanian Villayar of Coimbatore, that is who wrote commentaries for around 4,000 songs. And he earned the title Sivakavimani after his commentaries. So, but it is really a pleasant surprise to know, that Boraya's brother Lakshmaya, he was the first person to translate Peri Puranam in English in 19th century. That was also a pioneering work. And his brother Ramaswamy, Lakshmaya's brother, 3 sons of the 5 sons, 3 of them. Ramaswamy, Kavali Ramaswamy, a very famous name to be noted in the history of Indian English literature. We know well about the monumental and the landmark work authored by Edgar Thurston, Castes and Tribes of Southern India. And it is in 7 volumes, I think, if my memory is correct. And these 7 volumes were translated into Tamil. Again by a Coimbatorian. Again by a Coimbatorian, an eminent personality and one of the pioneers in Congo literature, in Congo fiction. He wrote the book Kallum Mannu, K. Ratnam. It was translated by Professor K. Ratnam, and he was my professor's professor. And though the Tamil translation of the Castes and Tribes of Southern India, that does not include the beautiful photographs shot by Edgar Thurston. Anyway, it is a contribution. By K. Ratnam to the Tamil society, to Tamil literature. But it is at the time when we talk about Castes and Tribes of Southern India, the 7-volume work, voluminous books, it was published in the year 1909. But even before Edgar Thurston got his work published in 1909, 16 years before the publication of this book. Lakshmaya, he he wrote a book on a similar title, Castes of Southern India. It was published in 1847. There is one information. And another monumental work in the history of Indian English writing is the same author, Lakshmaya's book, Biographical Sketches of the Deccan Poets. It was published in 1829 in Calcutta, and we learned that he has written the stories of some 17 Sanskrit poets, 13 Tamil poets, and 12 Maharashtrian poets. We need to trace their origin to know where Indian English literature begins. And what I have so far talked about is about prose and translation. And in Indian English poetry, and I'm sure Mrs. Kayama must have known, the first poet celebrated in the history of Indian English poetry is Henry L. Derasio. Henry L. Derasio is considered to be the first Indo-Anglian poet, that is an Indian writing in English. And he was a lecturer in Hindu College, Bengal, and he was not just a teacher. And he had good interactions with his pupils, and many of his pupils became eminent writers later. And he was the first man to teach poetry in English. And he had good interactions, and he kept a very close relationship with his pupils, and he started even an association within the college by name Academic Association, a debating club. And in that debating club, you know that he questioned the superstitions and the orthodox elements of Hinduism. That is one. As to put in the words of Matthew Arnold, the father of English criticism, poetry is the criticism of life. So why do you write poetry? Why Hema has written poetry? Because he wants to criticize life. And poetry is for criticism. It is a criticism artistically. It is an artistic way of criticizing the society. And Henry L. Derasio started a club, academic association, and he trained his pupils. And he wanted to impart English education, and he wanted to present the superstitions and meaningless orthodoxies of Hinduism. And at the time, you know, when this organization gained momentum, and the thing, you know, the Hindu Sabha in Calcutta, it was alarmed about the dangers of poetry. So we say it is a danger of poetry. The dangers of Henry L. Derasio's poetry. What happened, you see, you know, that it dismissed Henry L. Derasio from the college just for the poetic activities. And after the dismissal, he started a magazine on the title The East. It was one of the earliest Indian English magazines, The East. But he had a brief stint. Just after 6 months from the running of the magazine, he passed away. He died of cholera. And at the same time, while sharing something about sharing a biographical sketch about Henry L. Derasio, you know, that I should not stop saying something about the poetic beauty which he employed. And to say, you know, to estimate Hemavaty's book, the book of poems, you know, the character of her poems, it is of romantic, and it is of Indo-Anglian in nature. And I won't call the poems of Hemavaty as in the genre Indian modernist poetry. Indian modernist poetry is totally different. But anyway, at this point, I should say, I would love to say that there is a saying, the world wants, what does the world want? The world wants not classical poetry, not neoclassical poetry, not modern poetry, but the world wants good poetry, and this good poetry has been written by Hema. So, we love poetry. What is poetry? You know that poetry stands. Tiruppural was written many centuries back. but it is still appealing. It transcends generations. So one important at the time I said that it was her poetry. The character of her poetry was romantic, with rich imagination and with rich social thoughts. So that is the character of romantic poetry. And let us not discuss what Indian modernist poetry is. This is not the time. This is the time to appreciate our poems. At the same time, I should like to give an outline of the history of Indian English poetry. And it was Indian English writing, or the genres, or the forms, the poetry forms, the poetry forms from English were directly from England. And that's why eminent poets like Sri Aurobindo, they gave new metrical forms even to English poetry. And sonnet, it was a very important form that had been borrowed from Italy, from Petrarch. From Petrarch, sonnet. Petrarch was the first person to write sonnet in Italy, the Renaissance Italy. And it went to England, and many eminent poets, even Spencer, Edmund Spencer, Shakespeare, Milton, Henry Howard, many eminent English writers, they loved the form called sonnet. Though sonnet originated from Italy and it went to England, it is really a wonder that how it came to India. And Henry Derozio has written many sonnets, and one of the sonnets is To the Moon. He writes about the beauty of the moon. And I am not going to read the entire lines, just one line, just one expression. And Derozio, he wonders, the moon is white in color, and it is pale. And the pale, it is a character of despair, sadness, and agony. And the poet imagines why the moon is so sad. And he writes this thus in his poem. Why is the moon so sad? We watch moon here. The moon is white and it is pale. And to the mind of the poet, the moon looks so sad. And he gives the answer in his imagination. That is what we call the rich imagination of romanticism. So the moon is sad because she is in the guilt of creating the darkness in the world. The moon is guilty of creating darkness in the world. So the moon is very sad. There is one important line I wanted to share with you about Henry Derozio, being the pioneer of Indian poetry. And he had also written an epic-like long poem, an epic-like Paradise Lost, or the Iliad or the Odyssey. And the poem, it runs for 2050 lines. The long poem by Henry Derozio. And the central idea of the poem is, as I was telling you, poetry is the criticism of life. He criticized the society. He criticized the superstition. He criticized the atrocities of religion. And particularly the practice called the sati, where the widowed woman is thrown on the funeral pyre of her husband. So the theme was, the theme of that poem, the title of that long poem is The Fakir of Jangira. And it is about sati, and one widowed woman, young woman, Nalini, she is rescued from the practice by one of her childhood friends. His name is Fakir, with a team. And at last there was fight. Her father requests the king that soon he would capture that girl and put her on the fire. Even the father was supportive. And there was fight, at last even Nalini was killed in that. So, as I was telling you, Henry Derozio, he wrote a very long epic-like poem in the romantic character, running for 2050 lines, You know, I was really surprised to know this. He wrote this epic poem at the age of 19. That is the thing we have to know. That is an inspiring thing for any writer. Just imagine a 19-year-old boy writing an epic poem in English, that too lasting for 2050 lines. And let me come to the estimation of one or two poems by Mrs. hemavaty. And I went through all the poems. And I love your poems. And I love the poem which you have written on the title, Love Forever. It's on page 22. See, it is good poetry. She writes, the first line is very catchy. That is what we call lead in newspaper. The lead is very important. The lead should say, the lead should speak the mind of the writer. The first line is, if you love somebody, will you bind it in a cage? That's the first line. And she compares, you know, the similes and metaphors she has employed. All are beautiful and rich and deep. If you love somebody, will you bind it in a cage? I love birds, but I wouldn't shut them in cages. Nor would I bind them in chains. Gold though they may be, I love them flying in the sky freely. I love that rhythm. Freely. I love to see their wings stretched breezily. So this rhyme, you know, this rhyme scheme, it is one of the elements of romantic poetry in English. And it creates something. I love them flying in the sky freely. I love to see their wings stretched breezily. You know, as a reader of poetry, as a passionate reader of poetry, you know, that this poem reminds me, actually it reminded me of another poem written by Bharatadasan. And I don't know how many of you have read this, have come across this poem, but it is whether by good chance or bad chance, you know, that I came across this poem long back in translation. The translation was done by eminent writer and translator who is no more today, Mr. Male Tangappa. While I was a vociferous reader of Periyarera, which was edited by our great comrade Muthu, and Periyarera was the first magazine in which I saw my first English writing in print. So I was a subscriber, and every month, you know, every issue carried a small poem translated by Malayalam, particularly the poem written by Bharatadasan, and I loved it. Once I read it, there is a success of translation. The entire poem has registered in my mind. So I am reminded of that poem when I read Hemavaty's Love Forever. The poet speaks to the parrot. They pet you. They praise you. They call you, oh my gold and oh my diamond. They give you nuts and kernels. But oh parrot, don't you find that you are in a cage? See, your elder sister, she is on her wing. She sweeps all the clouds in the sweet sunshine. She picks grapes from the roadside. And she frisks and gambles on the coconut fronds. Heaven and earth belong to her. But this wooden cage all you have. Heaven and earth belong to her, but this wooden cage all you have. The last stanza, which Ember Tangappa didn't like, but I like. For the rhythm, for the rhyme. Heaven and earth belong to her, but this wooden cage all you have. Sister, you better. Is freedom a commodity like ginger or pepper to be brought to you by your sister? That was the line. So, I see how poets think alike. So you have got what Palandir Bali doesn't got. It is usual. Nobody has thought how Bali doesn't thought. And the parody in her poem, the satire, it is on page 32, the title Orphic. She speaks about women, the importance of women in the society, and how woman has been viewed for ages. When she reaches puberty, when she menstruates, there is chaos in the whole dynasty. When she becomes pregnant, the body shows. When she gives birth, the world knows. If that is her weakness, here I should like to emphasize this last line. If that is her weakness, which is the weakness of a woman, menstruating, getting pregnant, delivering a child, when this act of woman is weakness, hemavaty calls that is the strength of woman. That is the strength of woman. And this is one of the poems which I loved reading. And the continuity of the book, Chastity, another poem. And I'm really thankful for the coinage of some English words. Though in modern Indian poetry it may sound very odd, such coinage gives confidence to the writer. The coinage is, even after centuries, we the cultural conservatives rub our virgins on the troublestone until the girls moan, and the satire, see, she speaks about virginity and the chastity of a woman, and I personally feel that these two expressions have to be taken out from all dictionaries in the world. Virginity and chastity. And they go for absolution. When a virgin, like Akalige, when a girl, when she believes that she has lost her virginity, she goes to the sage and she wants to get herself absolved of the sin. And she questions the rishis, that is the woman's voice. The rishis and sages used their services. I think it is a modern usage in English. The rishis and sages used their services and certified them clean. So who is a rishi to certify a girl that she is clean? Rishis and sages used their services and certified them clean of all. Why announce virginity? Why pronounce chastity? Our virginity is our own institution. Our chastity is our own entity. Birthright to protect clean and nature, she writes. That is a poem which I wanted to quote. And then, they seek approval, another word. Why avoid any rishi to endorse? Why should we women avoid any rishi or any ascetic to get approval? So that's the kind of deconstruction she has made in one of her poems. And I'm reminded of the Nobel laureate who passed away a few years back, the poet, American poet Louis Gluck. She has written a poem on Demeter and Persephone, on Persephone. It is a famous myth in Greek legend that Persephone, the beautiful daughter of Demeter, she is abducted by Hades, the king of the underworld, king of the land of the dead, for her beauty. And Demeter, the mother of Persephone, she is tired of waiting for daughter, and she never returns home in the evening. And she discovers that her beautiful daughter was abducted by the king of the king of the land of the dead, Hades. And then Hades, you know that she was abducted forcibly. The king, the king of hell, he abducted, he took her to the underworld, and she was hungry there. So what food can you get in the hell, in the land of the dead? She ate 6 pomegranate seeds. And after several appeals to the supreme god in the Greek legend, Hades now she allows Persephone to go to the earth. And Demeter, she curses, when my daughter is not on the earth, no plants shall grow, no trees can sprout leaves, and there should be scarcity. So the total earth is dry. And once the daughter comes to the earth, so for the count, you know, she has eaten 6 pomegranate seeds. The judgment was that Persephone should live 6 months on the earth and 6 months in the hell, in the land of the dead. So when she lives for 6 months on the earth is so beautiful, with the colorful flowers, with the cool climate, and the beautiful trees, and the singing of the birds. So it was springtime when Persephone comes to the earth. But the saddest moment was the Demeter, the mother, sending Persephone again to the land of the dead. And once she goes to the land of the dead, the earth becomes dry, and there is scarcity. There is scarcity of food. There is drought, famine. So the thing, you know, that Louise Gluck, the American poetess who received the Nobel Prize, she has written a poem, and I cited this poem in one of my articles. And Persephone's initial sojourn in the hell, how she sojourned in the hell, continues to be pawed over by scholars. The scholars still doubt how Persephone traveled in the hell. Who dispute the sensations of the virgin. So the poem Virginity and Chastity, I am reminded of this. Who dispute the sensations of the virgin? The scholars who research on mythology. Persephone returns home stained with red juice. What is that? She returns to the earth stained with red juice. What is that red juice? Gluck wants to know. Persephone is having sex in the hell, she says. She has sex with Hades. Unlike the rest of us, we live on earth. And he jumps to the contemporary society from mythology. Unlike the rest of us, she does not know what winter is and only what causes it. She does not know what winter is. And Gluck continues writing. She believes, Persephone believes, she has been a prisoner since she has been a daughter. That is the lie. She has been a prisoner because she has been a daughter. Did she cooperate in rape? She puts a question mark. Or was she drugged, violated against her will, like many men do, like notorious men do in our society? Did she cooperate in rape, or was she drugged, violated against her will, as happens so often to the modern girls? The question of Gluck, my soul shattered with the strain. The woman's soul is shattered with the strain. What strain it is? My soul shattered with the strain of trying to reach the earth. What will you do? She puts a question to the modern women, modern girls. What will you do when it is your turn in the field of God? When God tries to rape you, what will you do? That ends the poem. I am reminded of Louis Gluck's this poem when I read Hemavaty's poem on chastity, and the last one I just wanted to share with you. And there is a poem on the title Hierarchy, page 39, and it is not talk about ideology. And the tone of the poet or the protagonist of the poem, she seems to be a supporter of the hierarchy in castes. And the beginning of the poem, she begins Marx and Lenin. And she is of the opinion, it seems, that such a revolution brought by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar in the north and Tandai Periyar EVR in the south, to annihilate the system called Varnashrama. So it is not a criticism. It is not a criticism when caste is only for the occupation. When caste is based on birth. So in India, I don't think caste is based on occupation. Caste is based on birth in India. So in South India, in Tamil Nadu, the Periyar EVR was retired to revolt against it. And in North, Dr. Ambedkar was retired. That is to fight against the caste system, to annihilate the Varnashrama system which is based on birth. While comparing the discrimination among human beings, he compares how discrimination is made in other European countries. In other European countries, the differences were based only on class. But in India, discrimination is based on birth. So how birth can be a factor to discriminate one human being from another? So it is just, I just wanted to share this critical point to the author, Mrs. Hema. And again, that I am reminded of another important point, that to say how strong the Varnashrama was in Tamil Nadu, in ancient Tamil Nadu, I mean, say in 16th century. In 16th century, poet Kalamegam, he wrote poems. Poet Kalamegam, he was, that he would create magic in words. That too, he was adept in composing venas with challenging vocabulary. And I know one of his poems on deconstructing this Varnashrama. So Kalamegam being a poet, that how hemavaty deconstructed. So what is love? Love means putting someone in cage. That is a deconstruction. And Kalamegam deconstructed in a Venba. Deconstructed. He thought, he thought in deep, and he wanted to deconstruct that Varnashrama Dharma, which was based, which propagates discrimination based on the birth of the human beings. He deconstructed. So he thought, and he used a very important tool in Tamil prosody, Tamil grammar, Tamil prosody, or I would say, that, what is that, Ani Ilakanam, called rhetorics, in Tamil rhetorics. He begins the poem. I just read the poem in Tamil, and I will come to the conclusion after. See, every caste is identified with its practice in the society. So he starts. The first line is terrible, the first two words. But I just wanted to read quote Kalamegam, that's all. Maadu Timpan Parpan. That is the line. Have you ever heard about Brahmin eating beef?
Yes, very much.
Maybe.
In the Vedic period.
In the Vedic period, yeah, right? In the Vedic period, Brahmin said beef. So, Tinja, that he researched on that, I feel. So, in the Venpas, Madadimban Parpan, so in Tamil Nadu, it was not a practice. Madadimban Parpan, Marayoduvan Kuyavan. Have you ever come across the potter chanting mantras? Marayoduvan Kuyavan. Kudimigu Ban Pisaivan Kolani. So Kolan, it is a name of a caste known for dealing with iron, smelting iron. Kudimigu Ban Pisaivan Kolani. So, Kollars do not make mud. Kudimigu Man Pisaivan Kollane, Thedi Irumbadipan Sekan. Sekan is a community for oil pressing. Yennai Virpan Varnan. Varnan is a community for washing clothes. But here he says, that Varnas, they sell oil. Paragudavai Tapu Parai. That is the last line. Paragudavai Tapu Parai. So the caste parayas, they are known for announcing the death. They are known for giving announcements in the villages. And they don't indulge in the occupation called washing. So that's like Paragudavai Tapu Parai. Kalamegam has deconstructs this Varnashrama Dharma by using a very important tool in the grammar rhetorics. What do you call that in Tamil? Kadai Modi Matru. Kadai Modi Matru means taking the last word of the poem and starting to read from that. So now I read the actual poem. மார்தின்பான் பார்ப்பான் மறையோதுவான் குயவன் கூடி மிகு மனத்து செய்வான் கொல்லனே தேடி இரும்படிப்பான் செக்கான் எண்ணெய் விற்பான் வந்தான் பருங்குடவை தப்பும் பறை. Which is the last word in the poem? Parai. You take that word and start reading from there. Parai மார்தின்பான் பார்ப்பான் மறையோதுவான் குயவன் கூடி மிகு மனத்து செய்வான் கொல்லனே இரும்படிப்பான் செக்கான் எண்ணெய் விற்பான் வந்தான் பருங்குடவை தப்பும். So, if I just wanted to ask the author hemavaty, in case the Varnashrama had not been so strong in discriminating a human being from human being based on the birth, could Kalamegam have written? Why should Kalamegam write this verse? He wanted to create a revolt. He wanted to revolt at least using a poem. Though Kalamegam was born as a Brahmin. And he was in love with Devadasi, Mohanangi. And Mohanangi, she belonged to the Shaivite cult. And he followed Vaishnavism. And the first point, who renounced his religion and to embrace a new religion for the sake of love was only Kalamegam those days, in that year. So, with this, I'd like to close my speech. I hope you all felt interested. And the thing, I also want to thank, I should also say thanks to Comrade Ramananda for who took pains in bringing out this book in print form. And Mr. Dappadam Nagarajan and the writer who has given introduction to the book, Mr. Vasudevan. The book is priced at ₹100 and it is published by Podivanam. And again, I just wanted to say what the world is waiting for is not classical poetry, not modern poetry, nor neoclassical poetry. The world has been waiting for good poetry and hemavaty has written that. Thank you.